Thanks everybody to join this session. Today I'm going to speak about a new AWS service that you guys have heard about that is called the Application Migration Service that we are usually calling as the AWS MGN, which is a brand new service. And at the same time, is not, because if you guys are familiar with Cloud Endure, this is a service that was built around all the foundation provided by Cloud Endure. But on top of that, he brings out of the box integration with some AWS services that Cloud Endure didn't have. And I'm going to be explaining a bit more on how it looks like. And also, I'm going to be running a demo where I'm going to be creating an EC2 instance and migrating to AWS. I'm sorry, I'm going to be creating an instance to mimic on-premises server, and then I'm going to be migrating to AWS just so you know what the process look like, what are the steps required to install the application migration service, and what is the typical workflow and the steps to hit the ground running. Okay, so just a few reminders, right? So when we are talking about migration with AWS, this is the typical blueprint you guys are gonna find with the map, right? The migration acceleration program. So we have the assess phase, mobilize phase, and migration phase, right? This is just a quick overview of the broad migration offerings available through AWS. So when we think about migrations, and we have these three phases I just mentioned, and you guys can notice that the application migration service is a key component as it helps and feeds into two of the three key areas, that is the mobilize phase and also the migrate phase, right? Uh, One important thing to remember is that, as I mentioned, you guys might be familiar with Cloud Endure, but this new service improves on it by integrating with the other AWS services such as IAM, CloudTrail, Migration Hub, CloudWatch, and some others that we didn't have in the past. And I'm going to be showcase how it works. So when it comes to AWS MGN or Application Migration Service, it's pretty much a solution for lift and shift, right? So it automates the process for the lift and shift, and helps you migrate physical servers, virtual servers, or even other cloud services to AWS without any compatibility issues, any disruption, or having long cutover, right? So if you guys have played with AWS SMS, that is server migration service, usually the cutover time is around is something with hours. And when it comes to the Cloud Endure and now the application migration service, the cutover is only about a few minutes. So that's a breakthrough, because it improves the even either both the RPO and RTO to have a better high availability solution when you are providing migration for your application, right? So this is one of the key components that I'm going to be walking you guys through. One additional point that I wanted to emphasize here is that you can migrate applications and database from any source infrastructure that runs the supported operating system. So this includes all the common database that we see across the board, like Oracle, a SQL Server. You can consider migrating an SAP application or any homegrown application. So that's one of the major benefits. So as the solution use migrations on the disk block level. So it migrates on the block level. You don't need to be concerned with issues related to the drivers, any specific updates on the operating system level, because when you install the agent, that's you're going to be migrating everything you have on those disks installed for that platform. So I would say that in a nutshell, the application migration service is a good fit for pretty much all migrations, except when you have a region that is not supported, or if your customer needs to have a solution that is an agentless solution, and then eventually you can consider to leverage other services like the SMS, or if you are doing database migration where you are migrating the data only, maybe you can consider to leverage DMS. But other than that, I would say that application migration service is the go-to platform to quick start your migration process overall. So one of the key points here, why should customers consider a lift and shift migration? Because, you know, it doesn't require any change to applications or business process. You don't need to change monitoring, and you don't need to do anything that will impact the source servers. So that's why the application migration service is a good fit for pretty much all types of migration, and is the first step to help you to start considering modernize your application. So let's say you have an application that was built on J2EE, Java applications, and they wanted to modernize those servers by moving from the on-premise server to AWS, and then start working with serverless or eventually containers. So that using an application migration service can be the very first step that would be instrumental to automate the migration process. So that's why is it so important. So, and as I mentioned, the typical application modernization process has two phases. The lift and shift, where you quickly take advantage of AWS for cost savings, productivity, agility, and then you are able to do some replatform or even refactor as the example that I just mentioned. When it comes to platform support, I would say that you can work with any applications as you can find in this slide deck, any databases, because it doesn't matter what the type of database, because as I mentioned, it replicates all the data on the disk level, right, on the block level. So it's just a matter of install the agent itself. The most common operating systems are also supported. That is only a few. In case you, of course, you can go to the documentation for a complete list and supported versions. But these are the most common operating systems, and the only, as I can remember, that is not supported is a FreeBSD. And you can also leverage for different virtualization platforms. You can have source infrastructure from Azure, Google Platform, VMware, Oracle Cloud, and IBM Cloud, and OpenStack, and whatever source infrastructure you can come across, right? And how it works. So I just wanted to walk you guys through the overall blueprint and infrastructure, and then I'm going to be running a demo so that you guys can get familiar on what it looks like, how is the process to install an agent, and how to set up the replication server, how to set up the launch template for you to determine which sort of disks and which sort of EC2 instances you're going to be leveraging on the as those migrated resources. So that's going to be, I'm going to be explaining to you. So on the left side, is the source environment. So in this example is, and it can be composed of different types of applications or databases. But in this case, you guys can notice that I have two servers, right? One with 2 disks and the second one with 3 disks. When it comes to replication itself, you can pick up all the disks, or eventually you can, let's say you have a server with 10 disks and you just wanted to migrate a handful, some of those disks. So when you set up the agent, you can determine and you can set up which disks you are going to be replicating across from the source servers to the staging area and then to the final resources that are the tests and cutover EC2 instance, as you can find on the right side. Okay. So pretty much the implementation begins by installing the AWS replication agent that I'm going to be teaching you in a few minutes. I'll be doing that as a live demo. And the good thing is that it doesn't require either a reboot or a doesn't install anything that would be result in any noticeable impact on the performance. So it's something very straightforward. It doesn't impact the source servers, and then you can continue working with that. And at the same time, you can quick start your migration. So one of the things that you guys are going to notice, in case you are familiar with Cloud Endure, is that now this service is fully revamped. So you can do everything from the AWS console as you are used to deal with the hundreds of different other services that you are doing in your daily jobs, right? So when it comes to the staging area, when it comes to the staging area, you're going to notice that we have something called the replication server, right? So pretty much what happens is that the MGN uses your settings. What I mean by settings is which type of subnet, how many subnets, what are the security groups, what are the instance type, instance size, disk size, and many other parameters that you can determine to create your staging area. So this is used pretty much to keep the source server in sync with the staging area. So what happens is the first step is to have an initial sync up that can take from minutes to hours, depending on your source server size. So let's say you have terabytes of disk size that you need to replicate. The first step can take minutes from hours, depending on your link bandwidth. And then when you are set up, you're going to have a staging area with pretty much a copy sync, and then only the only the chains that are done on the source server are replicated. So this is a incremental. You don't have snapshots, right? So you don't need to play snapshots or to recover from a transaction log. So they keep everything in sync and all the chains. So let's say you are running your Linux and you just create a few additional files or a new directory structure. This is so whenever you do that, the agent captures that event and then it starts replicating from on the disk level, and that is a very straightforward and fast process. Okay, so this is the staging area. The first step is to install something with this. I'm going to be explain to you what the process look like, but upon installation, basically the agent performs an authentication handshake against the AWS MGN API endpoint with TLS, and this registers the agent with the service, which in turn automatically provisions the staging area subnet resources as I just described it and as just show it in this slide. So that's the very first step, right? And this is a staging area that consists of staging volumes that are pretty much low cost and Amazon ABS volumes. You have the replication servers that are pretty much lightweight EC2 instances, but you can determine the size, and this is determined when you set up your launch settings, right? So, and one thing to remember is for every source disk replicated, the MGN creates an identical size and EBS volume in the staging area subnet for data sync to start happening, right? So in this example, as you guys can see, the 5 replicating source disks result in 5 equivalent EBS volumes attached to the staging area replication servers, as you can notice, right? You're going to notice that we can have multiple. When it comes to replication servers, we can have one replication server per source server, or we can have one replication server working with multiple source servers. So the way to determine that is pretty much related to the workload, and if that could result in any meaningful impact on the performance while doing your migration, so you can determine if you need a dedicated replication server, or you can have one replication server serving multiple source servers. So this is pretty much an exercise that you need to determine based on workload, disk size, and some other factors. The conversion server, this is an important piece. The replication server, as I just mentioned, I usually treat small Linux instance, but you can determine the size and the type of instance that you're going to be leveraging for that. And one additional thing that you guys can find in documentation is that as a general rule of thumb is that one replication server can handle up to 15 concurrently replication disks, right? So that's the max. But of course, you can have one-to-one mapping depending on the workload size, disk size, and network bandwidth, right? So as I mentioned, the replication starts with an initial sync. And during this initial sync, the agent replicates all of the content on the source disk to the EBS volume in the stage area, right? And afterwards, in parallel, the agent tracks and continually replicates data writes as they occur and asynchronously replicates the data to the relevant resource in the staging area. And there is one additional component that is part of this staging area that you guys are going to notice while I'm running my demo, that is called a conversion server. So pretty much during the launch process for either the test instance or cutover instance, the AWS MGN spin up something that is called the conversion server. And what does it look like? So pretty much this conversion process includes change to drivers, network, operating systems license, and some additional instructions to let the instance that was on premise, for example, to be able to boot natively as one AWS EC2 instance. So this is a step that is very straightforward. Happens in just a few minutes, just 1 minute at most. So you're going to notice that this is a very simple process. And once the server is migrated, this instance is just terminated, right? So that's what the process looks like. It's very simple, very straightforward. It's transparent for the end user, but I'm explaining some of the things that is happening under cover, right? When it comes to network, this is an important piece as well, right? Because you guys gonna notice that we have the corporate data centers on the left side. For example, we have multiple servers with the replication agent installed in each of them. And the first thing we need is to establish this TCP TLS, right, to start integration between the replication agent and the AWS MGN that is running in a specific region of your choice. Then you're going to note that we're going to have to open the port 1500 for data transfer to start when the replication agent start replicating the data from the source servers into the staging area. And also you're going to notice that you need to open SSL communication from the staging area to the uh, MGN and EC2 instance and the S3, because the binaries for the agent and some of the things related to workflow itself communicates with EC2 and S3, right? So these are pretty much the overall view on the network piece. And also, if you don't have internet connection and you need to rely on VPN or direct connect, you can do in a seamless way. The only thing you need to consider is that you need to set up private link for both MGN S3, and you need to open up a port, 1500 port for the data transfer. And this diagram shows what the network flows looks like. So this is a typical network connection. And also, before we can jump into my demo, this is the migration lifecycle itself. So it starts with the assessment. We're going to determine which instances, servers, network, and the right size instance you're going to need. And then the right after that, you need to start installing the agents, set up the launch settings, launch the testing instance, and once you feel that your instance is in a good shape, and you can start with the cutover window, then you can move to the final stage. But one can turn to me and say, "Hey, look, looks like this is something very straightforward. It's easy, but you mean that I need to install agents for every single instance myself?" And the answer is a big no. Actually, there is a process that I'm going to be teaching. Not sure if you guys are familiar with that, but we have a consulting offering called the Migration Factory, right? So let's say you have 10 to 20 instances to install agents. It's a very straightforward process. You can automate things, but let's say you have hundreds of or thousands of instances to migrate with your customer. To install an agent for each instance could become a nightmare, could be a cumbersome process. So that's what it comes to this is where when it comes to the migration factor, you can automate all the steps. And the migration, AWS MGN, the Application Migration Service, is already integrated with that platform. But I'm gonna be showing all the steps to you. So I'm gonna start with my demo right now. So this is the very first step. So this is a typical workflow migration lifecycle. The first step is when your instance is not ready. So when it's not ready, it means that you need to install an agent. And then when you install an agent, that agent is going to be starting with the initial scene right off the bat. And then you put that instance in the ready for testing. And when it's ready for testing, it means that all the data was completed, transferred to the staging area. And then you can start creating some additional test instances to make sure the source servers were properly migrated into the AWS infrastructure as expected. So you can run, black You can run tests against your services and server and make sure that you have everything in place. So when you have testing progress means that the EC2 instance is being created. And once it's finished, you're going to have a new EC2 instance created according to your expectation. Then once you finish this step, you are able to move to the last stage, that is a cutover process, where you're going to be starting a new EC2 instance. That's going to be the final one. And then once you finish that, you are able to decommission all the servers that were used to quick start with the migration. So let's stop talking and let me get my hands dirty and show what the process look like. Okay. So let me go to my okay. So as you guys can see here, I'm in the US West U region. I have a few instances that I have created previously. I'm going to be creating one from the scratch, right? So let me launch a new one. I'm going to be selecting all the standard options, T2 micro. I'm going to leave all the default parameters for all the things. I'm going to keep this as a 8 gigabyte disk with a general purpose GP2. Add text. I won't add any text for now. I'm going to be creating a new security group for now. And then I'm going to be launching this. I'll be using my key pair, this one, and launch the instance. Okay. That should take like 1 minute at most. Let me give this a name for now. Okay. It's already running. So I'm going to be connecting to this instance as here. Okay. Let me open up a new tab. Okay. I'll be connecting to this instance. So, and as I mentioned, the very first step is something very straightforward. I just need to install the binaries that are available within S3. Okay. It's pretty much a Python script. Just download it. And then I'm going to be running this. I just need to provide the region. That's going to be West 2. The access key for a specific user with the right permissions to do the job. That's going to be the one I have here. And the second access key. And remember, as I just mentioned, we can replicate all the disks or just some of them. In my case, I just have one disk, but I'm gonna just press the enter button to start replicating all the disks. So the very first step is to download the AWS replication agent onto the source server. Very straightforward process. Very simple process. And if we go to the application migration server, as you can see here, you guys are gonna notice that I have 5 instances, and then one more is gonna show up here in just a few seconds when this process finishes. So it's pretty much registering with the application migration service in the US West U using the parameters that I just provided. Okay. Now you guys can notice that I have, one additional instance here. And this is the very first step, right? So pretty much the replication initial steps are to create security groups, to launch a replication server, to boot the server, authenticate it with the server, and some additional steps for the disk to create the staging disks on the staging area, and finally to start with the data transfer. Okay, so that process in my case with a one disk with 8 GB disk usually takes like 8 minutes to 10 minutes, and I won't wait until there. So I'm just showing what the process look like. But I also have one instance here that is ready for test. So which means that this instance is already has created all the disks, right, as this in the staging area, and is ready to start creating the test EC2 instance as a migrated resource into the AWS infrastructure, right? So if you go to the instance, EC2 instance, you guys are gonna notice that I have already created, not myself, but the MGN has created the migration service servers, replicating server. Oh, I need to start again because my session has expired. Reload. Okay, reload. Awesome. So I have the migration search replication server. Okay, and where I should go to do that? There is a replication button where you can edit all the things related to that particular server. So which instance type, which EBS volume, which encryption, additional security groups. If you're going to be determining any network bandwidth throttling or using any private IP for replication, setting up VPN, either VPN or direct connect or VPC peering for the data transfer. So we can go. This is something that you can change as needed, but this is the place you're going to be setting up, right? In my case, as you guys can notice, I have set up a M5 2x large instance for the migration, the replication server, but that can be a bigger or a smaller instance. Whatever it works for you depending on the workload, disk size, and many other factors. You can determine which one would be the best approach to you. But okay, getting back to this, I'm gonna go to the ready for testing. So all the data is replicated here, and pretty much what I need to do is you're gonna find the launch settings, where you can determine if your this is going to be copying the private IP from the source servers or not. And you can use the EC2 launch template. If you guys are familiar, of course, you guys are working with application load, either application load balancer or a Elastic load balancer with the auto scaling groups. This is exactly what is used. So you can pretty much modify this, click on this button, and you can determine lots of different parameters. So that's going to be based on an image instance, which instance type, which key pair I'm going to be using for that. If I'm going to be creating assigning a new IP. In my case, I'm going to be enabling a new IP, public IP, and also I'll be using the key pair to be able to access the instance, right? So I'm going to be using this one, and I can change as many parameters as I want, right? Depending on the parameters that I need and some other advanced topics. I'm going to be creating a new template version and then go to the launch template and make this as the default. Okay. Set default version. Select number 3 that I just created. And that's it. Let me see if this is the one. The 2 is default. Okay. So we can go back to the application migration service. Can go to this one, launch settings. And then you guys can notice that we have a public IP assigned because we just changed it, parameters, right? And the key pair as well. Key pair. Okay, sound good? So now that we are all set, we can go to this instance and then just click on the test and cutover. I'm gonna launch a new test instance. And usually this process takes like 4 to 5 minutes. But in the meantime, if you get back to the console again, you guys can notice that the previous server that I just created, it's about to be fully replicated. You can see here all the steps it's taking. If you go to the server info, you're going to provide all the things related to that particular server that was captured by the agent. You can see the disk settings, and you can work on that. You can change the staging disk type, and you can change the replication settings for this particular server. So when you created the launch settings, you can change over time if you feel that during the test, you notice that you should have a larger instance, or you should be setting up different disks or with just different size or different volumes with the different disks performance. And this is pretty much the launch settings, right? So getting back to here, we are going to notice that we are pretty much completed with this. One additional thing that I was going to show you is that it has integration out of the box with CloudTrail. So if you go there, of course, in the CloudTrail, you're gonna be able to find all the steps that were performable for both the agent and the MGN service. So you can see the launch configuration, replication configuration. So all the all the APIs that were called for that. So then you can keep an eye on this, and you can track all the things. One additional thing that is worth to mention as well is that it has out of the box integration with Migration Hub. So whenever you create your servers, you can start tagging. And by the way, this is an important step for the Mac migration and modernized phase, because in order to take advantage of the funding program and to start receiving the funding for the migrated servers, you need to properly tag your servers. And the application migration service provides this tagging for those servers. And then you can have this integrated with the migration hub automatically. So you don't need to do manual steps for this. This is an important piece. Getting back to the source servers, I have this one that is about to complete just one additional minute. So if we go to the EC2 here, you guys are gonna notice that I have the conversion server, right? What as I mentioned, what does it look like? Actually, it's a server that prepares the source servers to be able to run within AWS in a transparent fashion without having you to change manually the boot disks and the setup, firmware, network drivers, and many other things. So it prepares the instance to be able to run in AWS smoothly without any manual steps. So it's just a process. Yeah, as you guys can notice, it's just terminated. So it means that this conversion that usually takes no longer than a minute, just finish it. And you can see that a new instance, this one, 229, and then 229 is just completed, okay? So what is the next step? Just checking of course, we can just connect to this instance. Doesn't have the IP assigned to this. Okay. You see starting up the server. Once it's completed, it's gonna show up. It still says initializing. Okay. And the next steps are very straightforward. So yeah, you can see the instance in the EC2 console right here. We can connect to that instance, of course. Just copying. Just need to log in with a different user. User instead. And that's it for now. What the next step looks like? So once the test is in progress, what you can do is basically to mark this instance as ready for cutover. then you can simply keep this instance for additional tasks, or you can just terminate this instance and start with the cutover process, right? So that's what I'm gonna be doing. I'll be marking this as ready for cutover, and then if we go back to the EC2, you're gonna notice that this instance that we just created is shutting down, and then after that is gonna be terminated. And then what the next step looks like, it's very simple. So as it's ready for cutover, we can go here. We can launch a new EC2 instance. But let me show you something interesting. I'm gonna go back to the server. This is a server 5, okay? I'm gonna connect to this one for a second. I'm gonna be open up a new tab this way. I'm gonna create just a new. I'm gonna be changing a new file, create a new field files, right? Okay, the file is there. I just changed the few things, and right after I did these changes, they are already replicated into the staging area. So which means that when I start creating the cutover instance, uh, the data within the so let's say I noticed that I was missing this configuration file, right? And I noticed that this was an important step during during the test phase, that I noticed that I was lacking, and then I needed to move that data, to create that data into the source server, and that to be replicated into the uh, cutover instance. That's going to be the production one that is certified and tested. And so the process now is very simple. It's very straightforward. I just need to go to the to this server, okay, 229. I just created. I need to launch a cutover instance, and then that process is gonna take like 4 minutes around. And then once it finishes, you guys gonna notice that the new data that I just added manually to the source server, because in my case, in this demo, I noticed that I was lacking that file. We were missing that configuration file. It's just a simple example, but just to provide a bit more color on what the process looked like. Then the next instance is going to be created with all the changes. So whenever all the changes done in the source server, until you do the cutover, is going to be replicated to the staging area. And then when you decide that is the time to complete the cutover, all the replication and all the things going to be shut down and terminated, and no additional changes will be replicated. So you are pretty much finishing the overall process. In the meantime, while this new instance is being created, I just wanted to show a few additional links, to provide a few additional links for you to try this yourselves. Let me go there. Okay. So this is one available workshop that I wanted to share with you guys. I'm gonna adding this to the chat. Okay. So you can see, you can try yourselves if you will. Uh, There is one additional one. Okay, a new one here. A new workshop. And also, I would recommend you to take a look on the migration factory because this is what I mentioned. This version you're going to find here is for integrated with Cloud Endure only. But if you came across any customer and you need, to leverage migration factory with a MGN, just let me know. I'm more than happy to help because there is an internal version that we are just finishing, and that's going to be GA in just a few weeks. Okay, but this is the process that help you to automate the migration of hundreds or even thousands of servers, if you will, using the AMGN Application Migration Service. So it solves all the agents, is set up subnets, all the resources, disk size, and many other things required to set up your migration infrastructure. And then it has a few CloudFormation stack sets that will help you to automate the overall process. So this is what the Cloud Endure Migration Factory solution looks like. It is a very straightforward process, so easy to use. And if you have any questions, any um, concerns, let me know. Let me get back to the this to migrate. It should be available in just a few. Oh, just in the meantime, let me show you something. You can follow up all the steps, you can have access to the launch history, where you're going to find where the instances were created. When you terminate the launched instances, you can see what happens under covers. You can uh, find this all the steps that took place for any specific uh, step during the workflow itself. And looks like we are all set with this last step. Let me take a look here. So yeah, the source server was created. Let me go back here. And we are going to find we have a new 229 instance, right? Let me confirm. It should take like no longer than a few seconds. Source servers, cutover in progress. So it looks like we are all set. Let me take a look here. Initializing. Connect. Let me copy this. Open new tab. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I need to use a different user. Switch user. Okay. And then you're going to notice that we have the EPAN folder and the file we just created. Okay. And that's what was pretty much I have for now. Just wanted to open up for questions. Let me see if there is there a question. Is there a way for us to play with this before helping clients? Of course. This is already available within the AWS console for sure. Not sure if this is available as a free tier, but of course you can give it a try yourself with your internal accounts, and then just figure out what what the overall process look like. Just to play with a few instances, and then you can scale with hundreds or thousands with by leveraging the migration factory. And yeah, that's it. You can use that. Oh yeah, different question. Yeah, that's a very good question. You can do that going to the. Let me show that. Application server. You can go to the replication settings, and you can do that. You can throttle the bandwidth by changing the replication settings for each of those replication servers. Yeah, and of course this is a very important step because that will depend on the workload size, disk size, and the link speed for sure. And this is an important thing to be considered. And usually, most of the time, some of the time, most of the customer will be a VPN, either a VPN or a direct connect, and you have a few additional steps. But all of them are, you know, are available within the documentation on how to do that. Any other questions? If you open up the mic for any questions. By the way, speaking of the training for yourself, I would recommend you to. I'm going to share with you a few links. This is one important one. There is a that explains more about the cloud endure, but it can applies as well for this migration MGN, AWS MGN migration factory, and also how to use the MGN, and a few links for technical some technical videos with demo. And of course, I can provide you with this the recording of this session for you guys, for those of you that didn't have the opportunity to attend the session. And I think that's it. So we are pretty much on time. I do really appreciate it for the time you spend attending the session. If you have any questions, just please let me know. And thanks once again for attending the session today. See you soon in the next one. Bye.